Just sort of giving you a background of what the client is and where we come from. It's always been very clear for us that two things. One is the context has been one of the most important part of all our projects, and then the client is the other important aspect. During this entire process of our years of doing many houses, we've explored everything right from vernacular, understanding how context, and in every interpretation possible using the core of what the context is and studying the context and so on and so forth. Just an understanding of these multiple iterations of different projects that we have done. Then suddenly came this project called Altitude. So now Altitude is this project which is on a 700 acres of a tea estate, where the gentleman already have a house down, which is like a regular farmhouse sort of a thing. And he had one small little space on top, which he used to use only for freshening up and things like that. So it was like a floor plate of about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet of completely blocked up from every side and a Kerala roof, which was on top of it. Didn't have much of a character at one point, but one of the biggest problem it faced is because of the extensive wind. The tiles would fly off, the joinery would crack, the moisture, the fungus that would create was because it was completely a closed structure. Coming to a point, that is where the site is. That's the winding road that reaches the site. It's about 4,500 in terms of meters, in terms of an altitude from sea level. So if you see, this was the old plinth that was there, and the house had half fallen down, and I had an entire 600 acres to play with. Now the first thought is, what do I do? I realized there's no point in sort of taking more out because the biophilia was so brilliant around. So we said we will work still within the sort of the plate which is already there. So there was an existing plinth. We used the old demolition to sort of level that space up. And the old structure was a very rigid structure. So, and the beauty of the space, it literally had the 360-degree view all around. So, you had the valley come in like this and go up again, and there's another hill. So it's like a beautiful area where there's another level of altitude. In fact, we're doing a couple of projects for him, which is named Altitude and That Number, Altitude and That Number. This is one level of an altitude that we worked. And so the concept was from a non-porous structure to make it as porous as possible, sort of trying to work on a complete 360 sort of a degree view for every aspect. Light, ventilation, every works. The typical roof would be a sloping roof like that, but since I told you there's a brilliant vista which goes in this way and this way, we thought of just inverting the roof. Now to cater to rains, we had deeper chajas which walked out. So the beauty is through these spaces that you still see the entire ridge of the hill and the mountain at every given point of time, and not rather dropping down and cutting it. Because of the deep balconies, all the rains and everything were cut at this point. I'm just going to go ahead faster because I think I'm losing time. Of course, you see the porosity of the space again. Now, what we did is, now this was the old structure, the whole structure which eventually worked out. If you notice, the only walls that is there are the walls that defines the toilets, and so that all the plumbing and things that would work around. Every other thing, we've used steel as one major structure element, and of course the roof again being a steel roof or a GI roof. Only reason being of the major problem of the wind, and all the factories around that area with the tea factories all built in the same form of steel roofs. We have only one defining wall that sort of says this is the entry to the house. Technically, you walk in and the whole house is a very porous structure by itself. This is like the main entry to the house. Living room, dining room, bedroom over there, opening out, that's it. So literally now the first floor over here is like this. It sort of works in a way, there's a master bedroom there. You have another bedroom here. The master bedroom sort of has view on both sides. Like I said, there's a hill on the other side and there's a valley on this side. It sort of worked really well that way. Now the center spine that you see here sort of addressed all the services and everything that needs to happen. Now playing with steel was not the easiest structure, but it gave me a lot more flexibility because I could do larger spans, still having larger openings. Also, the one big thing is engineering the steel. Because the steel was the sort of like the skeleton of it and there was only glass around it, we had to rework the steel and engineering in such a way that we used two C-sections to create a sort of a vein in between, like a box section which ran every electrical line like a single vein around the structure. So of course, if you look at it, the viewpoint was brilliant from there, and that's the steep, and it just goes up again like that. Just an illustration, sort of an exploded thing. And I was very clear that the form will only follow the function so much that even when you see the roof externally as an elevation, every room when you go inside, you see the structure still there. So in every room, you see the form of the roof. It's just not a fascia that we have done. So you could experience that. So the study models, which was done that way, that acted like a large drain. Just going quick, sorry. Oh. Right, some other side. Before we did it. Right. Steel structure that came in. If you see, that's that vein sort of a thing that we created for all the electrical lines to pass through. The only walls which was done was the toilet walls. And of course, eventually turned out like this. At every given point of time, like I said, from the rooms, you get to see the views of all the spaces around, the biophilia. I didn't have to invest on art much. I didn't have to do anything. All the flooring which was there was all natural stones, oxide, kept walls plain as cement. But if you can see the view of that, sort of going and seeing the entire the valley. I had the roof which sort of reflects in all the rooms. You could see, just saw the interior, So eventually it worked like this, and I didn't even block those spaces because I wanted to see the floatingness of the roof to be very clear. So that was evidently made so that sort of works very well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Floor is open for the jury comments.
Yeah, nothing from me. It's interesting. It's very interesting as this thing, but I don't think any particular value that I could add in my comments. Yeah.
My only comment for this was the very strong geometry for this. Was it just to get the view, or there was even something beyond that too? Because it also felt like a very metaphorically like.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'm seeing that very significantly in your work, where there is a direct kind of I don't know, maybe I'm seeing it, but I see this whole connection of nature coming in. I don't know if it's your interpretation of a tree or a mushroom. I don't know. I'm just trying to get. But yeah, besides that, I don't really have any.
Do you want to address? You want me to address that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a lot of things, right? So when we actually did the planning, if you notice, there's sort of this. I was emphasizing on the entire porosity of this. Of course, with a typical roof that's there, you have two gutters on both sides, right? And when you do a butterfly roof, it sort of creates a gutter in the center. So what we did is that gutter, we sort of made it wide, which became like the service corridor, which eventually connected all room that way. And all the main services passed through that vein, eventually creating a very clear explanation from that plan how that is derived. And that's why the space came in. And the whole idea of it too, even if you look at the frame when it come down, because it does not stop this way, it sort of overhangs on both sides. So you can look at it as like a flying roof just on top of this entire porous 360-degree structure. And of course, when we did the section, one of the biggest problem which we were there is that view part of it. So, and steel being so flexible, I could actually bend it. The whole sheet, I could actually bend it that way. So I just took advantage of that liberty. And of course, and you should also understand the client is a younger guy. He loves nature. He's an avid car collector. So for him being for a space which is a little more modern, but yet considering the site was important. So we did explore that plan to develop this, but none of them were forced, if I could say. Yeah.
I had one question in continuation of that roof form.
Right.
I noticed that the inner roof is sloped but curved at the ends, and then the upper roof is actually straight, which goes into the gutter. Did I
Right.
read
No,
that
no, no,
right?
no, 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 no. That also curves. There was a section. Sorry, it was very fast, but
That's
if
okay.
you notice, there was a bend. Though the curved roof, or the zinc
Top
sheet,
roof
the,
also bends,
folds that way in.
Okay.
So the false ceiling is also that way.
Right.
So I've basically used the same roof up and down, but the
Twice,
top
right.
one was a puffed one, and the bottom was a
okay.
regular one. That's it. Because of this one very reason that it's so much more easier to use it and maintain it.
Right.
There's absolutely no problem of rusting and things like that there.
Second question was, I mean, this is not the IIA awards, it's the IIID awards, and I want you to talk a little bit about the kind of aspect of interior design and for the house, and how have you kind of seen that?
Right. So I've always been this true believer of, you don't try to force things into a space. If you notice, there was only 2 paintings in this entire house, except for one next to the bedroom, which was an Islamic painting that he wanted to have. There's absolutely nothing that was put over there, which was, let's just say, except for the furniture, which he had already collected in the past. So we were very clear that every view, since most of the room had like 3 sides, 3 sides glass and 2 sides glass, there's absolutely no need of any sort of decor of those sorts. But in terms of the flooring, we were very clear. The top floor literally had the same flooring all over. The ground floor literally had the same flooring everywhere, except for one use of kadapa that we used. So the emphasis that was purely let architecture interior itself develop by itself and not too forced by itself, right? If you see, even the staircase was a block. That was the only strong block that we've tried red oxide. It's just so that there is sort of a definition. When you stand there, you notice this sort of divides this zone and this zone. That's it. But others, everything else was very clear attempt to do interior. So, interiors-wise, I would have shown you more, but unfortunately, this won't right. But yeah, it's just play of those simple materials, I'd say.
Thank you.
Yeah.